What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky from Video Homicide, and today we're going to be covering one of my favorite horror films of the 1970s, or even of general. This movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper, who also directed The Funhouse. He directed Eaten Alive. He directed quite a few other, well, not too many, but he's been around. He's a horror master for a reason. He's put out some really good stuff. He actually was in on the collaboration with John Carpenter with the movie Body Bags, which is a great anthology film. I would highly recommend checking that one out. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to me, is one of the most scary, visceral, bloody films of all time that barely has any blood in it. To me, the name alone strikes so much fear into my young heart when I was just a little kid. I've talked about it before, like those taped movies up there my dad made. That was how I first seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's a rickety old tape, very fuzzy, very greasy, and I just remember watching it and being so scared because I think like when you don't know, like, or when you're not prepared to see certain things, i.e. Leatherface coming out of that door and it's like that angle pointing up at him, he looks way larger than he actually is, and he beats the guy in the head and he just slams the door closed. Like, that type of stuff is brutal. Not only that, but like the ways, like, he kills the guy in the wheelchair, who even when I was a kid I thought he was annoying as hell, but I didn't want to see the guy like get cut up with a chainsaw, or maybe I did subconsciously, but god damn, what a brutal fucking flick. But like I said, there's not a whole lot of brutality to it. It's more psychologically taxing, like the dinner table scene, So to get into the plot of the film, which was made on like a shoestring budget, and even opens up with this very scary title crawl with this guy reading about, these horrific events that have happened. And apparently he got paid like a handful of joints to do that, which I think is awesome. And the movie starts off with these 5 teenagers in this van, and they're on a road trip, and they happen to pick up this hitchhiker. Okay, and this hitchhiker actually got to meet and got a couple of autographs from him. I believe his name was Ed Neal. Very cool guy. And he's like a very weird fucking dude, and total hick type guy. He's got like a rabbit tail, or what is it, like a rabbit foot, like around his neck, like on a necklace, and like a little satchel of shit, and all these photographs, and just stinks probably, you know what I mean? And our teenagers, like, they're just like thinking they're being like, oh, we're gonna pick up this hitchhiker, we don't want to leave him out here, we can't leave him out here. It's like, fuck yeah, I've left so many hitchhikers, man. I would never pick up a hitchhiker ever. Okay, thanks to movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hitcher, etc. So they pick this guy up, which is their first fucking mistake. And our guy in the wheelchair, who's like a total dimwit, he's like, is that a slaughterhouse over there? What the hell's his name again? But anyways, the hitchhiker takes a photo of this guy in the wheelchair, and he's like, I took your photo, you gotta pay me now. And the guy's like, no, I'm not gonna pay you. And he pulls out this like fucking straight razor and just cuts the wheelchair dude's hand, all the shit, and they kick him out of the fucking bus. Well, first he cuts his own hand, then he cuts the wheelchair dude's hand, and before he does that, when he doesn't get payment for this photo, he takes it and lights it on fire and does what me and my uncle have always said is like some voodoo shit to it. And even when he gets out of the van and he like wipes his hands, like his bloody hands all over the side of the van, like it is almost like some voodoo type shit. But they end up going to this gas station that's owned by the cook, as he's known, and they basically get directions from him to go to their old grandparents' home, and that's where they go. And then one of the couples takes off, and that's when you first get like your, like I said, larger than life shot of Leatherface, and you get like that shot of the chick, like the camera going underneath of her ass and all that stuff. Like, there's some very iconic scenes in this movie. Like, she gets hung on a hook, from her back, which is, you don't see it, but it's implied, and it's very crunchy and hard to watch. Almost like Scarface in the bathtub scene, or excuse me, like the shower scene where the one dude gets like his head cut with the chainsaw, but you don't see it. You just hear it, and it's just like, it's hard to watch even though nothing's really happening. So you get that type of vibe from it. And then the other dude, he leaves to go try to find out what's happening, like to go find the friends. And then Sally is left with her brother in the wheelchair, and they eventually go and try to find, see what's going on. And when they get there, or on their way there, the guy in the wheelchair is like met by Leatherface and just totally disemboweled, like in his wheelchair with the chainsaw. But it's so satisfying to see this guy get killed, because he's the whole movie he's just like, Sally, Sally, where's my knife, Sally, 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 and like, fuck, like, good riddance. You know what I mean? Good riddance with that dude, man. But from there, Sally is now basically taken captive by the cook, because she runs away. She sees the cook's place, goes in there, and then she's basically wakes up tied to a chair, and they're at the dinner. She's at the dinner table with Leatherface, the hitchhiker, and the cook, and they're basically going ape shit. And they got like this old decrepit grandpa who is like basically dead, for lack of a better term. Like, he's like fucking cooked, man. And they trying to get him to like bash her head with this hammer to like drain the blood out, and the hitchhiker guy's like, he'll kill you good, you know, he'll kill you good, he's a good clean kill, and all this shit, and twisted stuff, man. And I just remember being so scared, and like, not like, whenever we went out into the country, like on a drive or whatever, I always remember like being weary. Like, that movie and Jeepers Creepers always had me kind of like looking around, you know what I mean? And Sally eventually, you know, escapes. The hitchhiker gets killed, like, in a brutal way, gets hit by this truck, and it just smeared across the fucking ground. And Leatherface kind of gets off his, you know, very famous, like, you know, where he's like kind of swinging the, you know, the chainsaw around in the air, and it's like this very close-up shot of him and him chasing Sally, who escaped in the back of this like passerby's truck. Very twisted stuff, very scary, and you know, is one of the best for a reason, because I think, like many people that seen it when they were young kids, it's almost like better, like your memories with the film are better than the film itself, but it's still nonetheless one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. I think it holds the flame very high, and it's hard to touch movies like that, especially like when you think about the 1970s. Like, you think of your like heavy hitter horror films, it's hard to compete. You know, you got Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Omen, Dawn of the Dead, Halloween. You know, you could go off for hours just naming like the sort of mainstreamy stuff. You know, not even talking about like the Fulci stuff. And you know, horror is so universal and so multicultural, and there's, you know, because just when you think like you've seen like every, like, you know, American horror film, it's like, no, well, now you got to check out the Italian horror films, or the Korean horror films, any Asian horror films, or, you know, European. Like, there's so many countries that are making these films, and like, there's no way you'll ever be able to watch all of them. So there's a channel that I go to for a lot of my horror knowledge, and that's 22 Shots of Moods and Horror. The channel name is actually Mood 616, but he has a podcast called 22 Shots, and like there's like over 200 episodes, I believe, and they talk about everything, man, every country. I've learned so much about horror films over the years listening to them, and I would highly recommend checking out that channel just to get a good idea of stuff. And not only that, but it's fun to listen to people talk about horror films, you know, talk about stuff that you love. And that's why I love making these videos, because it's so fun to talk about this shit, and then getting some interaction back from, you know, people that watch my stuff. It's always a good time. So like that conversation I had with the Trash Stash recently, I'd love to do that more with other people, you know. So if anyone wants to do anything like that, hit me up, and we'll go from there. So with that being said, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface, one of the biggest, best horror icons, horror villains, whatever you want to call him. He's there. He's scary as shit, and I will never be able to get that shot of him out of my head with that hammer, and just it comes down on the dude's head, and you can hear it like it goes like, you know, when it hits him on the head. It's rough. So thanks for watching, and adios.